But here's the other thing. Like when you mentioned the Zach Lowe thing and he's talking about Wembanyama and he needs more shooting. Like I said, this goes back to the 3 games thing. But more importantly, man, I did a deep dive today. I watched the Rockets game that I didn't get to watch live. And there's also this site. I retweeted it on the SSPN on YT account. Y'all should go check it out. I'm forgetting the name of it. I'm so bad. But y'all go to the at SSPN on YT, follow us. It's the first retweet, and there's a site that came out. It's something.fans. And I think it's bucketlist.fans. And they have tape for every statistical category from NBA advanced stats. And I went and watched a lot of Spurs today. I went and watched a lot of assists. I went and watched every shot that Jeremy, Trey, and Keldon have taken this season. I watched a lot of Zach's assists as well. Jeremy's and Trey's too. There was a lot of stuff. I don't know if shooting is the issue. I think we're just completely discombobulated. Don't know how to play together right now. It looked a little better with Trey out there at the end of the Rockets game, but last night, dude, in the Clippers game, Trey had the same amount of turnovers as Jeremy, and Russ took advantage of Trey every single time he was out there. And still, I'm not. Still, I would say overall, of course, Trey played point guard at Duke. He's been playing point guard his whole life. It's gonna look cleaner when he's out there. I'm not saying that. But like last night when I was watching, when you see, we opened this up talking about the interwebs and a lot of people talking, all of the people who are out there saying, like it's obvious we need to start Trey over Jeremy. You got to acknowledge those turnovers. You got to acknowledge when he gets taken advantage of on defense. You've got to acknowledge the wide open shooters and he misses them in the corner and throws it out of bounds. And that's not me saying, once again, as I just prefaced this, that's not me saying that I don't think that. That's not me saying I think Jeremy is playing better than him playmaking wise, because I don't. But it's not like Trey's just this, we're going to put him in and it's just going to fix all of the problems offensively. From the first 3 games that I've seen, I just don't think that that's the case. I think he's better at finding Wemby, which I think is important for our offense. But like you said with the deer in the headlights thing, we're doing way too much isolation. Like it's weird the way that and I think it has to do probably with just the ramped up intensity of the regular season. I feel like that is if anything has shown itself in the first 3 games, Ethan, with the staggering difference of our offense in preseason versus the regular season, it's the ramped up defensive intensity of the regular season. and just reminded me, I mean, it's, to be honest with you, it's humbling me a little bit. I'm like, man, I really should not have been as optimistic. Not to say that there's still not potential, but I think as high as I was coming out of the preseason, it was like I shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, it's like with Wembanyama here, we're just like, we're so excited. So I don't think it was too egregious, but at the same time, like I said, with what we've seen so far, it's a big reminder of that.
Most definitely. I agree with what you said about Trey. I think the Rockets game really got people excited about Trey, thinking, like you said, he could fix all the issues. And I love Trey Jones. If you're a regular of the show, you know how big of a fan I've been since we drafted him and since he played in that first summer league and in Austin. I think, like you said, he calms guys down. But it all comes back to what Pop said, I think, in preseason press conference, or maybe it was media day press conference, in terms of how he's going to use Wemby. And he was like, first few weeks, we're just going to let him go. Like, we're not going to have like a scheme for him. We're just going to let him get a feel for the game. And then we'll start kind of scheming and actually coaching. So right now, like you said, it's a lot of isolation. It's a lot of discombobulation. And part of that is probably because Pop doesn't call plays really for anybody right now, because he's letting them get a feel for each other. And they don't have one yet, clearly, because they haven't had enough experience or time together in that lineup. So it's going to be like this, I think, for at least a month or 2, to be honest with you, where it just looks, I don't know, disconnected.
Sloppy. Yeah. Disconnected is almost a better word, though, because, when I think about, I've been thinking about a lot of basketball terms also, just in the wake of these 3 games and really last night and the Spurs offensive struggles, if you will, to start the season. And there's a couple terms. There's 2 terms that one I was coming in with that I knew pre-planned, but as you just said that, another one popped into my mind, and I get these from shout out to Dan Miller at San Marcos High School. He's who I do my Basketball and Brew podcast with. I produce that, so y'all go check that out if you haven't. But regardless, he coached at Laterno University, a D3 in Texas, okay? And they really didn't have much history of winning. They had never been to an NCAA tournament. They had never won an NCAA tournament game. They had never won a conference championship. Or if they had, it had been a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
He came in and did all of those things. Got them their first NCAA tournament win, got them 2 NCAA tournament appearances, and I believe a couple straight conference championships. And he has very good history as well in Texas high school basketball, etc. And there's two terms that he uses for his teams that I think are applicable. And I know that's a different level, but I still think it's applicable to the Spurs. One is connectivity. As you just kind of mentioned, we feel disconnected. Connectivity is a term that he uses for all of his teams. If they want to accomplish their goals, they got to be connected. We don't feel connected right now. But here's the big one that I came in with before you even mentioned that. Ball speed. Ball speed on offense, man. Like, we're not
That's very true.
Our ball speed is so slow, and that's so unspurs like, and it's very different from the preseason. So we need to improve that, obviously, but I'm not enough of a basketball, I don't know what to say, guru or knowledge.
We don't have the solution.
Right. I don't have to say exactly. I'm just a podcaster. So I don't know how exactly. I mean, obviously it's passing faster is the simple way to put it. But I think because of the situation, as you just alluded to, I don't know how quickly that's going to come, because I think we've got to be connected before we can have ball speed. Because if we just try to have ball speed, then we're going to have turnovers, which is already an issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agreed. The one thing I will say ball speed connects to that we should do more often is throw the ball in full court to Wemby when he has someone pinned down underneath the basket. Still don't know why we don't do that. Trey's the only one that consistently throws it up to him.
Absolutely. And that's the one thing with the Trey thing that I really do see where people are coming from there specifically.
Yeah.
I was rewatching the Rockets game today. This will get us into the Rockets game here. And there was literally a whole segment. You know what I'm talking about. Sean Elliott's like, Devo, you missed him right here. And then there was another one where Sohan could have threw it up. And that does tie into kind of Devin's post-game press conference against the Mavericks, where he said, we haven't been playing with guys who are 7'4", so it's an adjustment and it's going to take time. Not an excuse, but it's something that here's the other context with that, Ethan, that I think people aren't taking into account. Last year, we programmed these guys to just go out and act like they're Michael Jordan. I know that's an exaggeration, but we just told everybody, go take your shot. So now it's like almost a complete 180. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Anything concerning Victor Wembanyama and getting them the ball, I think we should just blanket statement. It's going to take time.
Yes.
It's things that have to be figured out. That's not an excuse. Like you said, yes, they're basketball players. They should know some of this stuff just inherently, but
they should be more aware.
It's going to take time. And that's literally every player that's ever come into the NBA, except for maybe LeBron James and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's going to take some time, unfortunately. But one thing I think we can do offensively that maybe doesn't need to take as much time is emphasizing getting Devin Vassell the basketball, whether that's him running off screens, whether that's him cutting to the basket, because we've seen his inside scoring in the first 3 games of the season. And I think that is something that has translated a little bit from preseason as well. One of the few things is he's really, that Mavericks game, he didn't even shoot that well from 3, but he was able to get 24, 25 points, however much he had, because of his inside scoring. You mentioned the jelly layup that we did see a little bit of against the Clippers last night. Or we need him in pick and rolls as well. We just need him in some capacity, to be involved in some part of the offense. I don't hate having him in catch and shoot situations, but I feel like that should be the lesser of all the other things that I talked about.
1000%. The only time I really want him to catch and shoot is in transition when he's the trailer and takes a three. Otherwise, I want him with the ball in some in some capacity because you're completely right. I mean, the Rockets game is a perfect example of what we want him to do. Like as far as Dev Vassell moving forward, watch the Rockets game. That's what we
Yeah.
need every single time because they did emphasize getting him the ball and dribble handoff situations
Yep.
coming off of screens. He created his own shot. He and Jalen Green were kind of going back and forth for a little bit there. And he had 25 points, 3 boards, and a couple assists. Like he was terrific in that game.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the other thing, like when I talked about him in pick and roll situations more, I would like to see him taking it up a little bit more. Because this like as we've said from the beginning, this Sohan lineup is not like, yes, we're calling him Sohan at point guard, but he is not. It's not traditional point guard responsibilities.
Mm.
So I would like just his handle. It's night and day when you watch, like especially today when I was on that website and you go look at Devin's shots and then you look at Sohan's and you just see the difference in like how they look with the ball in their hands. I think that would help us in our creation ability a lot. And also Sohan on offense, dude, every shot he has taken, it's like it's either been a three or it's been in the paint.
Yeah,
And sometimes he forces it too much, which I that he needs to improve on that. But there's been a lot of good moments of him cutting to the basket and dunking on people. He
yeah,
already has multiple dunks on people this year, and we forget one was against Alper and Şengün, and then one was on Derek Lively. And so I mean, those are two guys who had games against us in both of those
Mhm.
games. Um, so
Yeah. Only thing I'll say in defense of Jeremy in that situation, it is different from last year in the sense that now there's two guys in the paint. Rather than last year it was just Zach. So now
true.
there's less room for him to operate. So he's kind of forced out of the paint a little bit more and out of that dunker
That's a
spot.
very good point. But
So
we still have found him in those situations this year.
mhm.
Like so
Yeah.
and I think that Devin having the ball would open up those opportunities more. But with what you're saying is very true because at the end of the day, while I do like Jeremy driving to the basket, I would probably rather have Victor. Now that's a very good two options. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah. It's
but
kind of made it hard for everybody to drive, to be honest with you. And like as great
Keldon
as it
too.
is having, yeah, Zach and Wemby, two big physical presences as far as getting extra possessions and rebounds, and they're both skilled on the block. It's like suddenly we're playing old school basketball sometimes, and guys just there's no room. There's no room to operate as far as getting to the basket.
This is also Devin and Keldon's first time playing with two bigs. I didn't even realize that either.
It is. That's another complete learning curve. They've never had to do that.
Yeah.
And Zach last year was really he was a five, but he wasn't always getting it in the low block. He was like high post or a pick and pop guy. So the paint was
Yeah.
wide open for Keldon to barrel through. And now
And he
there's
was
like,
the only guy in the paint too, because
hmm
we were playing Jeremy at the four.
yep, exactly. Or Jeremy was cut into the basket. So
Right.
now there's three guys that would technically four if you want to count Keldon that all prefer to
Yeah.
score on the inside. Wemby's kind of an in between guy, but
No, that definitely at least Zach, Jeremy,
Keldon.
and Keldon. And really when you look at the second half of that Rockets game, when Wembanyama's perimeter shot isn't working, we're gonna have to turn to the interior. So
hmm
that's four right there.